may have heard, Silicon Valley is woke now. Even if you see through the culture war crap here, you may have internalized another myth, equally as damaging, that tech platforms like Google, Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, PayPal are just that, platforms. Neutral places where a neutral algorithm feeds you content based on your personality or search history. This is a dangerous myth, and it comes at the expense of queer people everywhere. My name is Alex Monea. I'm an assistant professor of English and Cultural Studies at George Mason University, and I'm here to tell you that the internet is incredibly anti-LGBT+, why it got that way, and how we can fix it. Don't believe me? Think I'm just a woke cultural studies academic pushing an agenda? Well, yes, I am. But hold your hate comments for just a moment and let me throw some things at you. Let's start with Google Safe Search. You know, that thing that makes the internet safe for kids and people at public libraries. In truth, it wasn't very effective until Google implemented image recognition capacities, which in turn relied on computer vision, a machine learning algorithm that analyzes large sets of labeled images in order to learn patterns that it can use to then identify new images that are fed into it and so on. Well, the initial training data for the image labels, essentially the algorithm's worldview, was based on databases called WordNet and ImageNet. And oh boy, did they produce something. Between 2012 and 2015, Google understood the term bisexual to denote pornography, and thus deprioritized or erased links to bisexual content from its search results. These databases connected sodomy to bestiality, they connected masturbation to self-abuse, they connected miscegenation to interspecies breeding, they contained no label for transgender, intersex, or asexuality, and thus flattened all of gender and sexuality into a cis and heteronormative model. They contained a set of images with the label slut, which was composed only of women. They contained a set of images with the label closet queen, defined as a negative term for homosexual men who choose not to reveal their sexual orientation, which reinforces toxic masculinity by labeling any and all intimacy between men as closeted queerness, and offers the possibility of computers automatically outing supposedly closeted gay men, which has dangerous future implications. The list of biases is endless. The final safe search algorithm, the one that we have now, more frequently censors LGBTQIA+ content than straight content. It sexualizes and polices women's bodies more than men's, and is woefully ill-equipped to deal with trans, non-binary, and intersex bodies. To highlight this hypocrisy, take a look at Courtney Damon's Do I Have Boobs Now campaign from 2015. Damone began posting topless pictures to Instagram and Facebook throughout her hormone therapy and transition, asking, "At what point in my breast development do I need to start covering my nipples? At what point does society say it's unacceptable for them to be out?" Safe to say, Facebook responded with promises to do better in the future. These empty promises being the industry standard response to instances of algorithmic bias making the news. And I'm just scratching the surface here. Facebook banned sex workers and sexual slang in 2018. eBay purged all content perceived to be sexual or LGBTQ+, while carving out exemptions for Playboy and Penthouse in May 2021. Facebook allows nudes on oil and canvas, but not nudes that are produced digitally, which are far more likely to be created by anonymous queer artists online. YouTube banned filmmaker Erica Lust for her clothed, non-explicit content interviews with sex workers, and it demonetized Sam Bardo's film Sam, about a bullied trans boy's journey of self-discovery, despite the fact that the film has been screened at festivals and in classrooms around the world and had over 6 million views. Again, the list is endless. All this leads to an environment I like to call the digital closet, an environment that, for the most part, leads to queer people only feeling comfortable remaining online if they keep quiet about their sexual identity. So, to understand the origins of the digital closet, we have to understand 3 key paradigms in how the internet operates. First, the turn to advertising-based revenue models to provide free services makes appeasing advertisers central to most internet platforms' bottom lines. Advertisers, thanks to puritanical and conservative values in the United States, are loath to have their ads appear alongside pornography, and exert a huge amount of pressure on internet platforms to be trigger-happy with censorship. This leads to oversensitive porn detection algorithms and a preference to have a lot of false positives rather than having even one piece of pornography slip through undetected. The second historical shift is the increasing monopolized platformatization of the internet and the subsequent bias that comes with it. The ad-based revenue model made it essential that each company try to keep users within its own walled garden, where it could collect data on them and use that data to target them with ads. You know these walled gardens as Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. This small handful of companies and their employees thus exert an inordinate amount of control over what we see online. A recipe for bias. How bad can that bias be? Oh, really, really bad. Women comprise only 30 to 35% of the workforce at Google and Facebook, and only 20% of its technical workforce. 85 to 90% of Silicon Valley's AI researchers are men. In a 2017 survey, 90% of women reported having experienced sexist behavior at work, 60% received unwanted sexual advances, more than half of which came from superiors, and 40% declined to report these instances to protect their careers. LGBT employees are most likely to be bullied and/or experience public humiliation in the workplace, with one survey noting almost 40% of LGBT tech employees witnessed homophobic discrimination and harassment at work. This means that a group of largely straight, cisgendered, and often sexist men craft algorithms and community standards meant for the whole internet, which leads to policies that conflate sex work with sexual exploitation and sex trafficking, that are deeply anti-pleasure and sex negative, incredibly cisnormative, relying on assigned gender at birth as a natural category for decision making, and represent a new form of cultural imperialism, with values forged in the US being rolled out globally. The third paradigm, the simplest of all, is profit. Taking Facebook for a second, 1 in 1,000 pieces of content posted to the site violate their adult nudity policies. That means millions of decisions are being made every day. Worse, decisions about pornography are considered the easiest to make and are left to the least trained reviewers who have an average of 7 seconds to make a decision. Driven by profit, these underpaid reviewers are incentivized to move faster and must make thousands of similar decisions each day they work, and those decisions have huge consequences. Users or owners of Facebook pages or groups that have just 2 pieces of content censored as nude imagery within 90 days are unpublished and/or banned. So, powerful advertisers, monopolized platform bias, and a drive for profit combine together to make the digital closet. But how do we fix it? To change something this big and this systemic requires 2 stages. First, the immediate fixes, plugging of holes in a sinking ship, and second, more revolutionary fixes, like getting on a better ship to begin with. Some immediate fixes could include demanding anti-censorship commitments from major internet platforms, using legal and regulatory options to put pressure on internet platforms, building capacity for citizen oversight and independent audits by collecting and analyzing data on content moderation, legislating for AI explicability and fairness, transparency, and accountability in content moderation, and demanding better adjudication mechanisms for improperly censored LGBTQ+ content on social media platforms. Revolutionary courses of action are highly historical and situational, so it's difficult to outline them as clearly in advance. And revolution should be determined democratically. So please just see this as my personal perspective. That said, some initial revolutionary aims might include implementing collective ownership of internet platforms and running them as public utilities, decriminalizing sex work, and more generally disentangling the criminal justice system from sex work. Actually, while we're at it, abolishing the police, implementing utopic queer spaces online, overhauling our democracy to make legislation and regulation better reflect the popular will. One final thing, these algorithms and policies don't just hurt queer communities online. They're bad for straight people too. They don't work very well, and their biases make them ill-equipped to accurately interpret the world around them. Crucially, the same nonsensical, biased, profit-driven impulses that create the digital closet can and have made other closets. Political, cultural, racial, geographical, gendered, and it's in all of our interests to dismantle the digital closet, and to do so soon.